Well, it's easy to write when you have good material. Dad gave us 95 years worth. Dad was an unusual dad. He suffered a major heart attack the year before I was born, and he was significantly older than the other dads I knew. He didn't just seem older, he was older. My childhood friend Cherry Boone's father, Pat, for example, is 76. Because 76, my dad was 95. Because my dad was so much older than most other dads, I was always concerned about his longevity. By the way, I knew what Pat Boone did for a living, and I knew what Anne Ryan's father did for a living. He designed the Barbie doll. Dad, I wasn't so sure of. There was a lot of golf. He read the New Yorker. He drank Beefeater martinis with a twist. He followed the Dow Jones. He drove to his office in Beverly Hills every day in his Jaguar, a car that frequently overheated and was often in the repair shop, but which featured soft leather seats and caramel burled wood paneling. In fact, Jaguars were just like the inside of an English men's club, and Dad was a shameless Anglophile. In the 1950s and 60s, Los Angeles was a hotbed of mid-century architecture and design. Charles and Ray Eames lived 15 minutes away from us in Santa Monica. But gradually, every inch of our house was overtaken by horns announcing the hunt, brass ship lanterns, and leather-covered writing desks. He had a Sherlock Holmesian love of pipes, too. But back to his work. There were vague mentions of Lassie and the Lone Ranger and Rita Hayworth and her daughter, a real princess, not a Jewish princess. Princess Yasmin Aga Khan. And who or what was William Morris? Who was Edie Getz? She was Louis B. Mayer's daughter, I later learned, a name I knew from the movies. Well, whatever it was he did at work, I knew he was under a lot of pressure because he could never sleep. I also knew that I felt for his secretary because he was such a tough taskmaster. I knew that he didn't suffer fools gladly. I knew that he didn't tolerate mistakes. He had little patience, but he worked hard and quietly without boasting or blabbing. He lightened up and was almost a different person around certain people, like my mother's parents, George and Marion, and my mother's uncle, the rabbi, Edgar Magnan. He enjoyed his friendships with many golf buddies, including Pat Brown. I think one of the highlights of his life was the dinner he attended for John F. Kennedy, whose photograph hung in our den for as long as I can remember. Dad rarely doled out advice like Robert Young on Fathers Knows Best, who happened to be his client. I can only recall this happening a handful of times. But my absolute favorite counsel from him was, "Tall oaks from little acorns grow." That meant save your money, invest it, and it will grow. I have 2 enormous handwritten record books chronicling every transaction he ever made on my behalf. When he would buy a few shares of stock for me, a few at a time. To encourage me to save, he sometimes made deals with me too. "If you invest your paychecks," he said, "I'll give you an allowance." "Done," I said. The rest of the things I learned from him were the result of osmosis. My brothers and I just knew that we had to be honest, humble, charitable, as loyal to our family members as he was to his, and even be liberal and forward-thinking The very last time Dad ever signed his name was on his absentee ballot for today's election, an event orchestrated by Mom, of course. Whether that says more about Mom or him doesn't matter. He did it with great effort, and I can tell this story for the rest of my life. So in his honor, I encourage all the Democrats in attendance to be sure to go to their polling places today. Vote. Finally, I would like to extend my and my family's deepest thanks to Dad's doctor, Richard Metz, for listening and caring and making many a house call. I'd also like to acknowledge Dad's caregivers, Linda Pruitt, Walter Diaz, Clara Rico, Julian Marroquin, and also Magdalena Hernandez, who were with him until literally his last breath. You made Dad's life better, and you made our lives better too.
Very good.